This is Southern Cross News with Joe Palmer.
Good evening everyone and welcome to Southern Cross News. There are more stumbling blocks for the Mount Wellington cable car project tonight, with the government revealing plans have changed so much the current approvals may no longer be valid. The proponents have also been told to cease any preliminary works after a drama involving surveying works within the Wellington Park boundary.
In the foothills of Mount Wellington at the end of Old Farm Road, this could be the new starting point for a cable car. Some local residents aren't keen on that idea.
People have chosen to live here because of its natural environment, the bush surroundings, very quiet, there's very few cars that come up here.
It's near this location the Mount Wellington Cableway Company had been conducting surveying works. But this activity has drawn the ire of the government, leaving ribbons and pegs inside the park without approval.
I've asked the Secretary of State Growth to contact the company this morning and express my concern at this circumstance and to ensure that they expeditiously act on the Trust's request.
The company says it's removed the items and takes responsibility on behalf of subcontractors. But another issue revealed in Parliament today casts bigger doubts. With a potential new starting point, the State Growth Minister says the project may have changed so much, permissions under the Cable Car Facilitation Act may no longer be valid.
I have requested advice as to whether the authority that I granted needs to be reconsidered, modified or rescinded. We've always said that proper process must be observed.
Opponents say this may signal a change in approach from the government.
I would hope that's the case. They've been wedded to this proposal for so long, but quite honestly, maybe they're seeing the MWCC for what they really are, smoke and mirrors.
In a statement, the company says it's considering shortening the alignment to better comply with the planning scheme and community input to ensure the project can be delivered. While a decision is yet to be made, we acknowledge the Minister is seeking advice on this matter. The Mount Wellington Cableway Company declined our request for an interview and wouldn't take questions on camera. Tourism industry leaders say the project is vital, but transparency is key to its success.
Now we need some clarity around exactly, well, what does this mean? Why is it different? Why has the government made this decision? And I think that's really up to the company and the proponent to be really transparent about what they're doing.
The government says it will have more to say on the validity of the Cable Car Authority in the coming days. Michael Breen, Southern Cross News.
The Deputy Premier denies he has a conflict of interest over Airbnb policies. Labor revealed in Parliament he and Health Minister Michael Ferguson own properties listed on the platform. The government deregulated the sector last year. Jeremy Rockcliffe wouldn't be drawn on whether he absented from decision-making relating to Airbnb.
There's no conflict of interest because I adhere to the Ministerial Code of Conduct. There is no conflict of interest.
The Housing Minister was repeatedly targeted by the opposition in question time on the government's response to the housing crisis. Roger Jensch dismissed the Airbnb issue as a stunt. It's dubbed the state government's biggest infrastructure investment and it's set to be sailing by 2021. The TT line shoring up a $700 million contract to build 2 new Spirit of Tasmania vessels in a move expected to significantly boost regional tourism numbers and exports.
Signed and sealed, this contract firming up the deal.
This is the single largest infrastructure investment in Tasmania's history.
European shipbuilding company FSG taking on the mammoth task of building 2 new Spirit of Tasmania vessels costing €219 million each, funded by TT Line.
Those orders have been placed and we'll have 2 ships delivered in 2021 ready to go on to the Strait.
Designed to last up to 30 years, the next generation Spirits will have significantly increased capacity, carrying 1,800 passengers and 600 vehicles on each crossing.
And we have a lot more overheight space compared to the current vessels, so in relation to caravans, camper vans, much more capacity.
this is a big shot in the arm that regional Tasmania needs.
Visitors coming into the state on the Spirit spend on average $1,200 more than air travellers, supporting the tourism boom on its upward trajectory.
We expect to have quite a ramp up in numbers, in fact, in 21, 22, 23 when the new vessels come online, and that was really the case when the current red vessels came on in 2002.
So places like Strahan, Stanley, they're the absolute lifeblood of the tourism industry. And
the TFGA is saying the 30% larger vessels will allow its members to fulfil the rising demand for our produce.
One of the key pinch points has been fresh produce, particularly in those summer months and later spring months, so this will alleviate that one.
The design's being held under wraps, but much of the interior is expected to be fitted out with local products. Louise Hedger, Southern Cross News.
A Tasmanian coroner has found a South Australian mother who died on Mount Roland in 2015 suffered a brutal, vicious and sustained attack at the hands of her husband. Simon Cooper today handed down the findings into the death of 44-year-old Kerry Lynn Michael, who died from massive and unsurvivable blunt head injuries. Mr. Cooper said her husband, Robin Michael, was a possessive and jealous person and thought his wife was having an affair with his best friend. But these views were completely unfounded. Mr. Michael was charged with his wife's murder but took his own life while awaiting trial. If you or someone you know needs help, support services are available 24/7. Unusually sunny weather has drawn a huge crowd to this year's AgFest, the biggest rural event on the state's calendar, offering products, produce and plenty of entertainment.
It has a reputation for attracting wet weather, but the only mud at AgFest today was on the four-wheel drive track. Beautiful clear skies drawing a colossal crowd to the rural festival, featuring more than 700 exhibitors, from cowboys working with cattle to junior whip crackers. 6-year-old Jacob Scott from Latrobe is a natural.
My dad showed me with his my mum's whip.
How do you find it performing in front of a lot of people today?
Happy.
The University of Tasmania showed off its new toys while researching ways of increasing fruit and vegetable intake among Tasmanians.
What might be stopping them from accessing their fresh fruits and vegetables? And that can include things like money, time.
There's also a strong science focus to AgFest, with this air cannon showing off the power of physics. Pulling power came courtesy of Kevin Sheedy, the mastermind behind the AFL's country game between Essendon and Geelong.
When you really look at how many great people in sport come out of Australia's country, we should say thank you.
And young news presenters queued up to be queued in front of the camera.
The sun is shining and it looks to be a great day.
Although the next 2 days are looking like a return to form.
Today is an absolute perler for us, so we'll just see what tomorrow brings and, get ready for AgFest weather. Bring the raincoat and the gumboots and you'll be fine.
60,000 people are expected to stream through the gates across the 3-day event. Tom Johnson, Southern Cross News.
The state government has announced a review into electoral laws. The terms of reference would include examinations of rules around advertising, newspaper coverage on election day, and regulations around third parties, including unions, during election campaigns. Also under the spotlight, a disclosure of political donations. The review will take written submissions from interested parties and report back in 12 months. 2 Tasmanian councils have officially ruled out merging, despite a report finding it could save $1.3 million each year. The decision has again raised questions about why the state has so many councils.
Walking the same path, but each mayor's councils have opposing views. West Tamar councillors want to take the next step in joining forces with their neighbours.
But the decision yesterday by Georgetown Council means that that process won't be going ahead.
Bridget Archer was the only Georgetown councillor to vote in favour of putting the merger proposal out for community consultation.
The council believes that we are in a much stronger financial position than what we were 12 months ago, and that that may have negated the benefits of looking further.
An $80,000 combined council and state government-funded report looked into the idea. It found not only would it be in the best interest of ratepayers to merge, it would save the councils an estimated $11 million in 10 years, money it could then reinvest significantly into the region.
We believed that this merger was going to certainly enhance and strengthen the services that both the councils provide.
11 full-time and 8 councillor jobs would have been lost if the councils merged. Still, many Tasmanians are eager for the state's 29 councils to be reduced.
They've cut them down a little bit, but still not enough. Well, if it's going to save the people of Georgetown anyway, money, good thing.
The West Tamar's good. I mean, some of the other little ones, let's get rid of them.
My son works for Beaconsfield Council and I'd hate him to lose his job. So I'm a bit wary about the whole thing.
The state government continues to say it will not force councils to amalgamate, but it is encouraging them to share resources and do what's best for ratepayers.
We don't consider at the moment merging with any other council.
We've got far too many local governments in Tasmania, but it's absolutely ludicrous and stupid that they're not even considering amalgamating with Launceston.
A proposal for a Hobart Super Council is off the table. Sorell and Tasman councils are still considering merging. Monika Dadson, Southern Cross News.
The Launceston Tornadoes basketball team is lending a hand to those in need. The club is asking spectators attending its Friday clash at Elfin Stadium to bring along life food items to donate to City Mission.
We're having a box at the game where everyone can donate items, and for us as the Tawns, it's really important that we're giving back to the local community as they help us get on the court.
The charity has seen a 25% rise in the number of clients needing food in the past year.
We are seeing an increased pressure on people with fixed incomes from the increasing rents. So as that proportion of their income gets soaked up by rent, it means they have less, and food is often the thing that they drop out.
The Tawns take on Geelong on Friday night. Play starts at 7 o'clock. Hundreds of workers at fashion giant Esprit will lose their jobs, with the company pulling out of trading in Australia and New Zealand. The global retailer will close more than 60 outlets by the end of the year, including its counter at the Hobart Myer store. It's expected the move will leave around 350 staff out of work. The company was forced to quit local operations after failing to turn around its losses. Now let's take a look at the day's business and finance news with thanks to Tasplan, your local super fund. The Australian share market has closed at its highest level since early February after a 5th straight daily gain, fueled by miners, retailers and IT stocks. The ASX 200 index has risen by 48.1 points. Short time ago, the Australian dollar was trading at 75.21 US cents and 107.12 New Zealand cents.
The TSL's 7 club presidents have finally been given a chance to plead their case for the future of the competition to members of the AFL's elusive steering committee. But with many options still on the table, that future remains well and truly up in the air.
With those ultimately calling the shots on the future of Tasmanian football nowhere to be seen outside Blundstone Arena this afternoon, the talking was once again left to AFL Tasmania's new CEO.
Talked about what are the key issues. So if some of the key issues are finances, travel, not having a presence on the northwest coast, how do we combat that?
But it still remains unclear just who's been attending the steering committee's Melbourne-based meetings to date, with Nick Riedwald tied up with media commitments and coaches Chris Fagan and Brendan Bolton in the midst of the AFL season. But Squires is adamant the big questions are being addressed inside the walls of AFL House.
Are we at the stage where we want to be? Are we as high performing as a competition? Are we the best competition in the state? And are we really playing at that level that we want to be at?
Are we?
Well, that's a question we've got to answer.
Today, several options on what a future football model for Tasmania could look like were tabled as TSL club presidents put forward a collective submission which they hope is enough to save the state's elite competition.
Why would you replace it? You'd have to replace it with something better. What model would that be? Do we return to the Devils, which had its own inherent problems? Do we go into the NEFL, which means that we have players that might be based at Smith and that might have to play at Darwin?
Presidents hope to meet with the steering committee at least 2 more times before the June 30 deadline, when AFL CEO Gillon McLachlan is expected to return to the state to deliver the final verdict.
Now they have to deliver, but they have to deliver something that is better for Tasmania than what we currently have.
Still on TSL, and Kingborough Tigers coach Trent Bomella says the time is now for the side to finally start living up to its potential. But that will be easier said than done up against an in-form Blues at Windsor Park this weekend, while North Hobart will be desperate to avoid yet another embarrassing whitewash at home. The Tigers got closer than any side has to Glenorchy this season, but near enough simply isn't good enough for the Kingborough coach.
Whilst the effort is great, we don't want to be getting pats on the back for trying hard. We've got to start to win some games.
Struggling to convert at times this year, Bomella says it's the delivery into the forward 50, not the Tigers' small forward line, that's proving the problem.
Yes, everyone would love a 6'3", 6'4" full forward, but they don't grow on trees. If you know one, if you've got any phone numbers or anything, feel free to flick them through. If you've got to get on footyrecruits.com for us.
With the Blues gunning for their 4th win on the trot after accounting for Clarence, the road trip north looms as a daunting one for the Kingborough boys.
They didn't get a really good balance. I think we had 8 to 9 goal scorers by about 3/4 time, which is a good result. So yeah, things are starting to tick in the right direction.
They're a tough nut to crack, and obviously having Thorpe down there, we bring up that tall forward again that we don't have. That maybe Thorpe might want to play a half for us or something on Saturday. I don't know if I can say that.
Unlike Bomella, D's coach Richard Robinson wasn't in the mood for jokes following another thumping as his young side prepares for another big test in Lauderdale.
I'm not proud of losing by 170 points. I mean, anyone in this room that was proud of a group that gets beaten by 170 isn't in it for the right reason. I'd argue there wouldn't be a side at this age demographic in the history of the TSL. So all I can say is, and I say it every week, there's a great feeling around the club. It's just very unfortunate how we're going on field.
The anticipation is building ahead of round 6 of the Tasmanian Netball League, with the Arrows and Northern Hawks set to meet in the much-hyped 2017 Grand Final rematch. The Hawks will head in favourites, coming off 2 100-plus goal games, while the Arrows will be looking to bounce back from a 5-goal loss to the Cavaliers.
Look, they've lost a bit of the defence end, so they're obviously not as strong with a few injuries that they're carrying. But that's the same with us, so it should be a fairly good matchup.
Hopefully build on the last 4 games. We have had some big wins, so just building on that, working on combinations and stuff. We know it's going to be a tougher game than the last few weeks have been.
In the weekend's other games, Kingston play OHA, Kurana play Devon and Burnie, with the Cavaliers taking on Cripps.
Good evening. Temperatures once again sat above average around the state today. We're really having a mild autumn, aren't we? Hobart 21 degrees, Launceston 23, 19 today in Burnie and Devonport 20. 24 was the top at St Helens and Flinders Island. Ouse 23 today, Grove and Friendly Beaches 22, Strawn 21, King Island 19, Lyawini on 14 degrees. Now today from the skies and just some patchy high-level cloud drifting over ahead of a heavier band which will move over tomorrow. That all links back to South Australia with scattered low cloud over parts of Queensland and New South Wales, a bit more over the Northern Territory. Tomorrow a cold front moves across the state along with Victoria, a trough following in its wake. Another trough extends from New South Wales to the top end. A large high sits over the Bight. Winds west to northwest at 15 to 25 knots, increasing to 20 to 30 knots before tending westerly in the afternoon and reaching 35 knots. Swells to 5 metres in western waters. Gale warning from Tasman Island to St Helens Point, a strong wind warning for all remaining coastal waters and a small craft wind alert for the lakes. Onto the forecast we go, a shower or two, getting windy for Hobart, 18 the top, 17 for Huonville with that same forecast, similar for Campania as well. Launceston rain clearing, a top of 15, 15 also for Devonport and Georgetown with wind and rain on the way. For Burnie, same, rain and wind, 15 the top, 15 for Strawn, 15 also for Wynyard. And for St Helens tomorrow, a top of 17, rain clearing later, rain at times for Swansea, 17, 18 the top for Port Arthur. On Saturday, showers over the west and far south, spreading statewide in the afternoon, but not much reaching the east. Fine on Sunday apart from the west, far south and Bass Strait Islands, where a shower or two may fall. And on Monday, showers over the north and west extending elsewhere during the afternoon. Mostly sunny in Perth, Brisbane and the far north tomorrow. Showers easing from Adelaide. A windy day also in Melbourne and a shower or two there and a partly cloudy 26 in Sydney. And here are the current conditions, fairly cloudy around the state at the moment. And Joe, how great is AgFest? Today I saw a fantastic display of marble, which is a very valuable building material and shouldn't be taken for granted.
It's better than the sheepdog trial joke you told last year. Thank you very much, Murph. That's all from the team. See you a bit later.